you are going to do everything for the last time. There's probably songs that you've heard for the last time, shows you've watched for the last time, people you've talked to for the last time, games you've played, whatever it might be. You've done a lot of things for the last time already, and you don't even know it.
You should never not do something because of the way things are right now. It doesn't matter how the things are right now. It matters in what you want to do. So do the thing you want to do, but don't worry about how things are right now, because nothing is certain anyway, and things could shift tomorrow and you could have missed the opportunity. So if you feel strongly about doing something, just do it.
It's been a very wet and rainy week this week, though, which I like. It sets a certain mood, but I do miss the sun just a little bit right now.
Yeah,
how is
nice.
it?
It's been good.
Nice.
I did my yoga outside, as I usually do, and it was nice and sunny. So
that's amazing. How often did you do yoga?
Every day.
Is it every day?
Every single day, at least 10 minutes.
What's your favorite pose?
Probably like mountain or sun salutation, some kind of like a side stretch standing up. I just really like standing up and becoming tall like a tree. You can feel all the muscles in your whole body if you're doing it like to the fullest extent.
I need to get into it a little bit more. I dabble every now and then, but I feel like you need to be consistent in order for you to really feel the effects of it. But I do like the Superman pose for feeling tall.
Yeah. You'll notice that you can stretch a lot further over not even that long if you do it every day. Like maybe after a month or two, you'll realize you're like gaining an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches even, like doing your forward folds or just getting deeper into your longer strides. It's a good feeling, like to see the progress that quickly. Unlike working out where it takes, I think, even longer to start really seeing like the big shifts. At least in the beginning, it might be some gains. But yeah, when you're doing yoga, it's like you feel better too. Like you feel better immediately. You see results immediately. It's my favorite part, I think, of every day for physical activity. I like it more than any other kind of exercise.
I bet there's a benefit to it bringing you into the present moment too, huh?
Yeah, that's why we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I know. And I'm excited to chat about it. I will hold you to like going through some type of yoga session when I come and visit you next year. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
but let's chat a little bit about like why we're here a bit more. We're talking about presence today. Obviously, you're using yoga as one medium to cultivate presence in your life. I think we're going to chat through quite a few more practical ways people can become more present in their life. But I think we should start with just understanding why presence, what is presence, what are we really trying to talk about? What's the main goal here? Do you want to share your thoughts on this side?
Yeah, I can go first. First of all, something really funny. I told my girlfriend that we were talking about presence on the podcast, and she said, "Oh, I love presents." And I said, "No, that kind of present." She's like, we had gone so abstract. We were talking about gifts. Anyway, presence. What is it? I guess as a definition, it could be focus, attention, the present. Obviously, it has a lot more deep connotations, which I'd like to get into. When I meditate, I feel like there's a different level of presence. There can be anyway. There's a deeper level of focus, and I think presence is an embodiment of focus, which can shift and be fuzzier or more pinpointed. And so there's levels of presence like there are other levels of things in life. That's what I would call a definition. And
so I think there, I guess it was just before you jump forward. So like, I think there's the present moment, and then that can be experienced through presence at various different levels.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Okay. Just a slight but meaningful distinction there.
There's only the present moment. which is also a
Yeah.
fun distinction.
Yeah. We will chat a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
I was just going to talk a little bit. I forgot if you asked why presence is important to me, but I'll just
Yeah.
answer that anyway. Why is anything important? I think is a question to ask in the same regard. Like I find that those are mirrors of each other. And the importance you put into anything in life will be reflected on your feeling toward it and your connection to it right now, because everything else is an illusion. What you think you're going to have as a connection to it in the future doesn't exist. And what you had to it in the past is a memory, but it's like an ingrained map that's there, but you're not utilizing the fullness of that right now. The only thing that exists, in other words, is where you are and your connection to what is happening. So the presence in life is all that there is, basically. So the more in tune you are with that, the more in tune you are with being alive, the more in tune you are with being cognitive and being aware. So all of those things put you off of autopilot. In other words, how far can you shift your mind from being an autopilot versus being completely cognizant? And the more cognizant you are, the happier it seems you can be, at least from my experience.
Yeah. So you're talking from a pretty personal experience. Before, I don't think we put this in the topics of discussion, but just briefly, can you tell me a little bit about your journey with presence? Like, at what point did you start to think about it as a concept and be like, oh, how present am I being today or right now? When, like, at a certain point, I think people start to become aware of how they spend their time, but to think it at about presence at such a conceptual level and to reflect on your ability to become present and why that matters, I think is probably a pretty fascinating story. Do you have anything that you want to share there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much time we want to spend on it because it's an in-depth story, but
Okay.
I'll try to make it concise because I also want to hear your answer for this. I'm sure that you have something really interesting. And like we met on a meditation hike in a present moment. We connected without our phones or distractions, and I think that said a lot about where we both were at the time.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I had dabbled a little bit in thoughts of meditation and presence, maybe more philosophically than practically for the most of my life. But then in 2020 was when it really made a shift because I had sort of a big traumatic event where I won't get into the details of it, but like my mind and my reality had shifted because what I had and what existed in my life became something very different. Because I had some monetary shifts and I also just had an environment shift and COVID was happening. There was just a lot of things unfolding at the same time. And the events like the monetary shifts happened very quickly for me. So I sort of didn't know how to respond to it. And while it was happening, I was like not getting very much sleep and I was staying up super late and I was like doing some investing and trading when I shouldn't have been in the middle of the night. But I made a commitment at that same time to do yoga for like 20 or 30 minutes every day with this like daily 1 month yoga thing with Yoga with Adrienne from YouTube. Shout out. She's awesome.
I watched her too. She's great.
Okay, cool. So I was doing her like her breath 1 month challenge every day. And it was amazing. Like I had this nice comfy rug that I would go do it on. So after I would go just stay up way too late, just staring at screens like 8 hours straight, trading, doing things I shouldn't, and like losing some money and just not having a great time in the outcome, then I would go do yoga right after that in the middle of the night for like 20 minutes. And it was like, I was stressed when I do the yoga and I would just like calm, but then I would realize I was alive. Like I wasn't in the computer anymore. I wasn't projecting my cognition into what I was becoming absorbed in. And I got back my presence. I got back myself in those times. Yeah, it was really necessary for me to continue going on, I think. And then after that, I started cultivating more and more presence and I started implementing more rituals such as taking cold showers, which will knock you into presence immediately. I don't care how tired or
Yeah.
conflicted or distracted you are. If you take a cold shower on max coldness for 2 minutes straight, like I've been doing it for years, and I still every time I get in, I'm like, oh, this is freezing, especially in the
We're not
winter.
used to it.
Yeah. So eventually I started cultivating it more and more, and I realized it calmed me down for sure. Like that was the first noticeable thing. The second noticeable thing was that I felt happier. I felt better. The baseline of my extreme up or down was just more of like a constant up. You're just walking up this 3-degree incline all the time towards feeling better, and that was a huge shift. So that's like more of a quick summary, but for me it took a little bit of trauma and awakening and like some hard experiences to get there, but they, just like anything in life, or somehow you go through these hard things, and eventually after enough time passes, if you've like, or if you're working to be a better person, or just you're curious, you'll probably end up in a better place from it. So that's what happened to me.
Definitely.
What
Very
about you?
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's like a pretty similar model. It stemmed from a traumatic event in my life. Throughout all of my life, I have been a person that's very into the next thing, never really giving myself time to appreciate what I'm doing today or right now. If I was in middle school, I'm ready to get to high school. When I was in high school, I was ready to get to college. And then when I started college, I was like, I'm done with this. Let me just start working. And so I dropped out. And like, I was always like running through my childhood, and at a really like granular level, day-to-day activities to like those broader timeframes. And I operated like that up until the age of 21, I would say. And so at that point, I had, and I don't think this is the right podcast to like too deep into this, but more as like a summation, I had a pretty rapid medical scare, and that landed me in the ER on multiple occasions. And then I got diagnosed with something related to your thyroid and your basically just your metabolism and your overall rate of like heart rates, blood pressure, all of these things started to go really, really high for me. And I started to have frequent panic attacks. Obviously, medication helped to some degree, but it forced me to start to figure out ways, coping mechanisms for being able to just be able to breathe. I was dealing with insomnia and other things as well. And it's like, if I'm going to be able to get to sleep, I need to calm my mind and not necessarily think about all of these what ifs and crazy scenarios that I'm constantly worrying about, because I'm like in fight or flight a lot of the time. And so learning things about like my vagus nerve, my parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, and going into those, being able, like even things like blowing on your thumb, breathing exercises, all of these things started to help calm my heart rate, calm me down, and allow me to go to sleep. And in the process of just trying to deal with this anxiety, I started to realize, oh, like I really enjoy these things because they make me calm, but there's like a certain presentness that I'm experiencing right now, like that's like a byproduct that it kind of surprised me, honestly. That wasn't like the main objective. It was just like, how do I clean my mind out and just clear it out and keep it as peaceful as possible? But the byproduct of that is presence to a large extent. And so that's when I started to lean a little bit deeper into it, when I realized, oh, I really like this feeling. And then I started to like look into like meditation as beyond just like doing breathing exercises and breath work. Like, how do I get a bit more sophisticated about it? And so I started falling in love with that world, and downloaded, and this is a really good app, by the way, obviously not sponsored anyway, but the Waking Up app by Sam Harris is probably by far the best meditation app out there. So I started to dig into that. And yeah, I would say from all of these mindful experiences, really cultivating the practice, doing it on a daily basis, like you said, it's like, it takes time, but you just gradually have like a higher baseline for happiness and overall contentment with life. Just
Mhm.
every day, it just kind of goes up a little bit more. And yeah, it's been a really nice journey.
Awesome. I am excited for you to talk deeper about it on another episode, but that was a really great overview. It sounds like we had similar but not comparable situations.
Yes. Yeah. But like trauma, I think is a big thing. But ideally, we can help people find presence without having to go through something traumatic. And I think that's why we're talking about this today, is to like
Yeah.
bring it up and also just
Hopefully,
serve as some like practical tools for finding it for
yeah,
yourself.
hopefully people won't have to do what we did.
Yes.
I
Hopefully.
mean, they don't get to choose
Hopefully
to
we
do what
are.
you. Yeah.
um,
Um, also, a quick note on the Waking Up app. We can say that they're semi-sponsoring because when I was struggling after that whole trauma, I like didn't have a lot of free money to spend on stuff, and they gave me like a year or 2 years for free. So just
that's
shout out
amazing.
to the Waking Up app. They will give you free access if you can't afford it. So
Hmm.
that's the best free tool, I would say, because it literally is free. You just send them an email and like
Hmm.
be honest about it. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Good plug there. And we'll definitely leave that in the notes along with like some other resources, I'd imagine, links to
Mhm.
it. But okay, so I think I do just want to step back a little bit and really outline some of the benefits of presence. I think we've dabbled on it here and there, but I had a few that I really just wanted to bring to the surface a bit more, just more specifically. So one is like what I've noticed is life is just more vivid and feels longer when you are present. Something in my life that I really had to wrestle with going through a lot of my medical experiences was the concept of finality and I'm going to die one day. And in moments, I felt like that was going to happen way sooner than I ever expected. And at that rate, I look back on my life and I was like, whoa, I was never present for any of this. Like it kind of just flew by. And if this is it, then what's going on? And I started to feel a lot of regret. And
Mhm.
so I think by becoming present, what you can do is you start to like increase the amount of details that you notice in your everyday life. The definition of your life just goes way, way up. And it definitely is more mentally taxing at a certain level. But when you are present every moment as much as possible, and you're not just operating on autopilot and relying on old patterns or constructs or concepts to take in the present moment, you see it for what it really is, as opposed to just putting like mental models onto it, which is going to be really efficient, but it kind of makes you lose a lot of the detail in the new novel experience. And so the result of that, because there's been a lot of studies that show, and I think maybe we should link some instead of just saying studies, but um, when you're doing something new or doing something novel, you tend to, when you look back on your life feels longer because there's just more details to look
And
back on.
memories,
Yes, yes,
specific memories. Yeah,
yes,
that you
yeah,
can
exactly.
recall.
So I think just that vivid increase, like if you become present, you're going to live longer. I mean, in a way. So I think that,
Yeah,
and that's
you're.
huge.
Mhm. It is, and that's. I was just gonna say the same thing. I knew that from reading and listening to podcasts that there had been studies showing it, but I wasn't really sure how it implemented into my own life. Like I wasn't aware necessarily that it had happened as of maybe 2 years ago. But even this week, I was just reflecting, thinking about this, not in preparation for this or anything, but I noticed that this year, I was thinking back, like I was in Japan this year. I was in Hawaii helping my friend build a house earlier this year. And I was in Utah, where I am now, earlier this year as well. And it feels like I was in Japan a year ago and it was like 5 months ago, 4 months ago. And it
Wow.
feels like I was in Hawaii 2 years ago. Like not even exaggerating. It literally feels like that. And I have traveled a lot. And like I recognize the difference of how long the timescales have felt like. They say when you get older that it's supposed to be the opposite, right? But for me,
Hmm.
the more present I've become, actually, the longer it feels that life has been fanning out and in a good way. And it's important that your memories are things that you find very interesting and engaging. And
Hmm.
sometimes you can cultivate that. for a quick example, like spending more time with my niece and nephews. I'm like, every time I hang out with my niece, she's so excited and interested to show me something or like to do something. And you have two options. You can kind of write it off as like, this is just a child and this is not going to be interesting to me because I'm an adult, right? But that's definitely the wrong way to do it. Like every time I lean in, I just dive in and enjoy what she's enjoying and like live it through her eyes. Think about how she's experiencing the world right now. Like I get back that same presence that I had when I was younger. And then I like to explore it with her too. Like, let's find something right now that me at my age, I find interesting within whatever we're talking about or doing, like drawing a picture together or exploring outfits or like doing whatever she wants to do. It
That's
really
so
makes a
fun.
difference. And so I have lots of fun memories and I know that she is getting the same benefit from it. So just like how your mood is like a hygiene imperative, a moral imperative, I would say, to be happy, to make other people happier. Well, I think the same thing is true of presence. Like your presence will reflect into other people's presence, and your same thing with your passion and everything else. It's all encircled, and if you're going to live longer, the people around you will benefit from it. So you're literally
Absolutely.
doing a beneficial thing for everyone else.
Absolutely. And I think, like you're saying, just to step back a little bit, how I'm framing it in my mind is you need to be more like a kid. You need to think like a kid at a lot of times instead of thinking back on like past experiences. Because the older you get, the more experiences you have to just kind of lean back on to and just say, oh, it's just like this past experience or whatever it might be. But with kids, everything's new to them and they're soaking in the world for the first time. And so many of their experiences are truly novel experiences. And so if you can get into that mindset, I mean, if it means hanging out with kids more, if you have nieces and nephews to like spend time with, as opposed to like not hanging out with them and, go sitting with the adults at Thanksgiving, because that's coming up, go sit with the kids at Thanksgiving and see where the conversation goes. I'm sure you're going to have more
Probably.
enjoyable conversation at that table. It's going to be more fun
Yeah.
because you never know where it's going to take you. So just like stepping into that, I think is huge.
Yes. And it can also, I think, offer you benefits in exploration without feeling like you have to make it as grand as it needs to be. For example, my friend has a 5-year-old kid in Hawaii, and he always wanted to go out on adventures with me into like their back wild woods because they just have it behind their house. So we go out together and find stuff. And I have this little half frame film camera, and I take some photos of us like next to a lava tube or up somewhere, and we'd like make up stories about what had happened. And when I look back at those film photos now, it's very vivid, and I feel like I went across the world on another adventure because
Mhm.
it was interesting and new for both of us, right? And we were just making it up and enjoying it in the way that we were curious about. So
Mm,
it
that's a
works.
great example. I love it. Okay. And then I think I also wanted to really sit in on um, just like the fact that the present moment is literally all that exists, and that the past and the future are really just mental constructs. These are illusions. And I found it very fascinating when I was first exposed to this as an idea, because it's really obvious when you think about it, but you can go your whole life with never really conceptually understanding it. And you get caught living in the past, regretting the past, worrying about things, right? And also just kind of thinking about the future, always living in the future moment and doing everything you can there. And I think that's where I spent a lot of my time was what's next, what's next, what's next. And I never was able to grasp and take in anything tangible because it was always, in the future. But these are concepts that are completely within your mind. Those you can't pinpoint the future. You can't observe it the same way you can in the present moment. And even the present moment itself also feels kind of like ever fleeting. It's like it's this instant thing. It's less than a second. Like as soon as it comes, it is gone, which is it's almost ingraspable itself, which is also like a really interesting concept. So what I found is helpful for me is to like, and I'm hopefully I can explain this right, but it's the concept of leaning right into the present moment. Like in order to be in the present, I need to just be so in tune with the moment like I have to be able to let go. Like I think I used like running is a great example. It's a really meditative, present grounding activity for me. But when I'm running, let's say on a trail, and I see a tree that's on the trail, I can hold on to that and I can continue to look at it. Um, but if I want to, as I continue to run and run past it, that tree is going to go outside of my visual field. And if I continue to think about it, then I'm not really taking in what's now in front of me on the trail, this other tree that's also really beautiful to look at. And so at the same rate that I'm like moving forward and things are moving outside of my visual field, I need to also be letting them go. I need to let the thoughts go. And so in a way, I'm stepping directly into the present moment. I have to be like prepared for it. If that makes any sense, maybe you can elaborate
Yeah.
more.
You know what? That's a very nice and astute observation and point. I'm going to push back slightly on the first point that you said about maybe the present being the only thing you can experience, because I do think there are clouded memories of the past that you can encapsulate yourself in with thought, just as how you can get distracted with other thoughts that are suddenly emerging in your mind. I think the past can be experienced and re-experienced, and almost it has to be reshaped in some way through that. So I'm slightly agnostic about the fact that maybe you could be present in the past to some degree. It just wouldn't be the same past. It's like
It would be a mental construct. It wouldn't be.
You're in the present and you're experiencing the present, but you are experiencing a reflection of the past in a new way through the present moment, is maybe the more refined way to say it. And
Yes,
I would give, hopefully we can segue into this. It rolled this into it perfectly. That I see from my experience, this is my lived experience, that presence is attention, and attention is like an invisible orb, if you want to think about it this way. You can put it anywhere you want within your perceptual awareness or within your mental awareness. And you can project it into objects, into technologies, and into other people even. And to expand on that a little bit, I'm just going to give some examples. Like the obvious ones are, if you're meditating, if your eyes are open, you're probably, if you're actually able to be present, you'll see more of a visual field as like a cloud, right? You have this sensory input, things shift and change. Same with your hearing, same with your breath, everything else, whatever you're focusing on within these physical realms and these sensory inputs will be there, and they'll be the thing that your attention is on and your orb of awareness is on. If you're having a thought, your orb of awareness is in a different space. You will probably leave your body if you're really meditating, and your thought could go away and you could just be in nothing. Like you close your eyes, you could just be out of all the awareness of all the senses. You could be in nothing. And I've experienced some version of that myself. I think some more interesting things that maybe don't get talked about as much are putting your attention or into objects or extensions of your body. So whether that means you're using a game controller and you're literally living through a video game and you have an extension of you within another realm, you literally are that. It's not that you're experiencing that. You become that thing because it's just an extension of your sensory awareness. Like you're taking in information and putting it out, and it's this loop, and you become whatever you're taking in through that screen. Well, you can take that further, and I would say that you can become one with nature, like a tree. You could touch a tree and you could try to feel, like actually try to feel, believe and feel that you can feel what that tree is. I think you can do it with animals, and then there's some emotional connection that goes on, and I think it's more than just chemical based. There's some physics involved in it that perhaps we don't understand. There's definitely chemical interest that we do understand. But I like thinking about it further with technology now, and like AI or just simple algorithms or programs that are in your computer. Like you can definitely envelop those. And when you're like making art, say together by text prompting images to come to life with an AI, you're like becoming part of that AI, and it's becoming part of you. You're working together in a new synthesis with new reactions within physics to make something extra and different come out. So through that, your orb of awareness like can embody other entities. And I think when people interact, we self-embody parts of each other as well.
Mhm. No, I totally see that. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's why I lean into just one of my favorite hobbies is meandering and just kind of walking through the world with no particular place to go, and put projecting my awareness onto particular objects. I have definitely hugged a tree or two and just really sat with it and connected with it. And like,
You've admitted
in a
it.
weird way, I felt
It's a
it.
good thing.
It felt me. And it was like, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but when I think when you really are there and you're fully focused, when you put your orb of awareness or attention into an object, there is a connection that you feel. It's very difficult to hold on to in my experience. And I think with practice, you can get better at it, because it's very quickly turns into like, oh, your mind just starts to wander and think about something different. That happens with me a lot. But I think there have been really beautiful moments, even if, it's a second, where I felt real connection to the universe through plants, trees, and even animals as well. And I don't think we're going to really go down this route in this conversation, but I think it's probably akin to some type of like psychedelic experience, like really small dose. I'm talking, but maybe a taste of what like a full psychedelic experience could bring you, from that like connection with the universe type of feeling that I get when I put it into other things. But I also find it very fascinating to talk about other, I dare I say, life form. When you say AI, I think that's very exciting, and I would say somewhat recent in the type of awareness that you can cultivate in the grand scheme of like human history with artificial intelligence. It's something I'm very excited to see where those types of relationships can take us and how our attention evolves through those.
Yeah, hopefully it's for the better. I think that's another conversation for another time. Maybe we should
I agree.
jump into the next topic. I would love to talk about it, but it's a little ahead of us.
Yeah, that's fair. We have plenty of ideas, lots of conversations coming down the pipeline. I'm very excited for them. Do you want to hop into, what do you want to hop into?
I would like to talk about some mindfulness practices just to make sure that we get them in a timely manner. We have time to explore them, because that might be the most useful part of this whole conversation.
I agree.
Is to give people ideas about how to be present and let them try things. Hopefully we would challenge you to try each of these things even briefly and see if they work for you, because clearly they will have worked for us, because we're talking from experience and being honest about it. Right, Gregory?
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, that's policy.
Yeah, that's right. Why don't you start us off with one? Should we just back and forth, just one each?
Yeah, we can do it. I think I've already technically done one, but I just really want to hammer it in. It's the art of meandering. Go outside, preferably. I think that's the best experience, but you can do it in your home if it's raining outside, whatever it might be. I encourage you to even maybe do it in the rain if you want, but go out into an environment of your choosing. And instead of letting your conscious mind decide exactly where to go, I want to go, I'm walking towards some object. Just sit back and observe. Let your senses guide you into a particular direction. So kind of connect with the world on a physical level. So maybe you're hearing the sound of a bird that intrigues you, or you smell something from down the street. Maybe it's a bakery if you're like in a city, for example. Maybe it is something you see that really does catch your eye in a new way, like a shimmer of light or whatever it might be. But you're not really like thinking, oh, I'm going to go there. It's just a matter of something draws you near. It can be very subtle. And then you just go towards that and you follow that subtle pull of intrigue. And I think this is really grounding, and it pulls you into the present because you're connecting with your senses. You're relying on your physical senses to move you instead of relying on your mind. And so this would be a different type of presentness, I think, where and you'll probably share a little bit more about like the concept of like mindfulness and doing like internal presence. But to be able to feel present in your environment, cultivating and asking yourself, what do I hear? What do I feel? What do I see? What do I taste? What do I smell? And lean into those things, I think, is a really great practice for just strengthening that muscle to be able to plug into your current environment, what's actually going on around you right now.
Awesome. I'm going to give 2 extensions to that because I also did the same one, but I do them in very specific contexts on purpose.
Perfect.
The first one is go to Tokyo and get off. First of all, pick a random train stop, or just get on, if you haven't spent much time there, just get on a train and get off at a station you don't recognize. But you could also pick a station on the map. Maybe that's sort of more towards a place or an area you haven't gone, preferably in the suburbs because it's more exciting. You just go get off with nothing in mind and you just start walking and you just start flowing, like you're saying, wherever you end up going, and buy yourself some random vending machine drinks on the way. You'll meet people and talk to them. You'll definitely see some interesting stuff, and the architecture will be beautiful and very varied, very holistic and interesting in a unique way. That's my first recommendation. I've done that a lot. I've probably been to about half of the stations now. There's, well, who knows if that's probably not true because there's over 500, but I've been to a lot. And
Get the idea.
The second thing is, whether you're a photographer or not, personally, I like to do this, and I do it with one of my friends as well, with film photography, because I've been doing film photography since high school, and I love it as a medium because you're very aware of what you're shooting. You're very aware of where the camera is going and like how you're setting things up, because you can't just keep taking shots. You have like 12 shots on a whole walk for like a 3-hour session. So you think about it and you frame them differently, whether you cognitively think you will or not. I guarantee you will. And then you go out on the same kind of walk, but you're looking and framing photography. And I would take it a step further and set yourself a prompt from the beginning. Some of my favorite ones have been taking pictures of plants where they're not supposed to be, taking pictures of really weird stairs in like a strange context, looking at bizarre angles or features of buildings and like cropping them into a certain way, right? So set yourself a goal within that. Go out with preferably a film camera, but like your phone is fine. You could just say like, I'm going to take, 10 shots and then I'm going to look at them after, and then use this as part of your exploration. I think it's all similar. This is like a walking meditation. I love that example that you gave, and I think it could fit in anywhere, obviously, but those are some ways that I have personally loved to do. And yes, it really helps you like focus and do something for the joy of it with it.
Right.
The rest of
following your curiosity, right?
Yeah.
At a certain way, like in the most truest sense, I think. I am very intrigued about going to Tokyo and doing what you're doing, or like at least any major city, but I think Tokyo would be particularly spectacular. I have been mostly doing a lot of my meandering in nature, which is a beautiful experience, but I think being within an urban environment, being really connected to community and just all of the things that are happening in a city environment, I don't know. I probably would have like sensory overload, but I think
in the best way. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's in the best way. Absolutely. Such a vivid experience to have. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, feel free to jump into your...
I'm going to just throw in a maybe more obvious one that that has a huge benefit from, which is breath work. So every day I also do Wim Hof breathing for 3 rounds, which means I take 30 breaths in and out, quick breath in. And usually I'll do it laying down because it relaxes me more. I can actually just get into more of a trance from it. And then you hold your breath after 30 of those. Sorry for the clicks. Hold your breath after 30 of those. And usually after a while, it's easy to do it for like 2-3 minutes, which is about where I average when I'm up at elevation. And then you take a breath in for 15 seconds and hold. You hold for 15 seconds. Then you breathe it out and you continue. And you do that 3 times if you want to do 3 rounds, which is what I'd recommend. And then after I started, I will do 4 rounds of the 4-7-8 breath work, which is breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and breathe out for 8 seconds through your mouth. And this is an Andrew Weil technique for anyone who's aware of him. He's like a very interesting, great dietitian and medical practitioner, and he's an interesting guy. I recommend looking him up. And then after that, I will do box breathing of 10-second sessions for each wall.
Okay.
So 10 seconds breathing in, 10 seconds holding, 10 seconds breathing out, 10 seconds holding. And then you continue that and do that for 3 minutes, which will help train your body. This is something that I learned from the Andrew Huberman podcast, because he does research on breath work in his lab. And what they discovered was that it actually will help slow down and bring your baseline and calmness to a better level throughout your normal breathing. You're literally training your subconscious breathing by doing that for 2 to 3 minutes every day to be a bit slower and more controlled, which is what you do in yoga as well. If you're actually practicing yoga the true way you should be, you're practicing your breath exactly as much as you're practicing with your body and your poses and your stretches. You're trying to slowly breathe in and slowly breathe out. And just like when you're doing exercise, yes, I'm sure you can attest, you can go longer the more in control you are of your breath and the more attuned you are to how slowly you can do it. So that's my next one, breath work.
Breathing is so powerful. I've actually have done the 4-7-8 breathing. That was instrumental to being able to help cope with my anxiety back in the day, because it really helps slow down your heart rate and just your overall system, because you're exhaling longer than you're inhaling. And I think that's a really powerful way. Just if you didn't know, you can really control either rate of like your heart and so forth, and like calming yourself by just exhaling longer than you inhale, which is like generally speaking. But the 4-7-8 breathing method is a really potent way to do it, and like a great guide for just counting in your head as you go forth. I have done some box breathing, not 10 seconds though. I definitely should start to get my numbers up a little bit more, but just from a controlled sense, I think
10 seconds is on like, yeah, 10 seconds is on the very end of the spectrum, by the way. Like you would never go past that. Usually 8 to 10 seconds is the max range. And most people will probably fall in somewhere in like the 3 to 8 seconds. 5 to 8 is like you're doing great. 8 to 10 is like you're doing better than you should be doing. I'm not trying to say that I am, but I've been doing breath work for like almost 4 years now. So I've been doing it a lot. I've held my breath for more than 24 hours straight easily. I know this because I log it in an app. So like it takes a lot of practice. It's just like anything else, but you will definitely get, if you do yoga every day and you do breath work every day for a couple minutes, you will definitely get there. Because I was terrible when I started. I could hold my breath for 45 seconds when I started. Like and now I
actually think I can't remember where I read it, but I think there's something about like how long you can hold your breath is like a great predictor of like overall health and well-being. And so if you can't hold your breath for very long, definitely start thinking through breathing exercises and trying some out, like box breathing, 4-7-8, and Wim Hof. I will say though, I have not done a lot of Wim Hof because I think I was really always worried about it increasing my anxiety. I think just as a disclaimer, maybe you should share a little bit more. Wim Hof is a really amazing technique, but I think you should be careful when you do Wim Hof breathing. Do you mind just sharing a little bit, maybe just like how you could approach it if you've never done it before?
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly dangerous, and I'll tell you why. Because you would definitely pass out if you forced yourself to hold your breath for too long, first of all. If you have a heart condition or if you have a medical history where you have high blood pressure, those are two instances where you would probably want to be cautious though. Right. If you don't have either of those things, there's almost nothing that could go wrong. Like your body knows how to fix itself. And if you get in a situation, you'll get yourself out of it. Don't do it in water, obviously. Don't do it face down in water. That would be the dumbest thing. Like I know my nephew just was like doing that, trying to hold his breath with his face down. I'm like, dude, this is completely the wrong way that you're. Yeah, when I found out he was doing that, I had to give him a real stern talking to because that's when it's dangerous. The reason those conditions matter is because you are putting a stressor on your body when you're doing the more extreme inhale and exhale for the 30 rounds. However, you can do them slower as well, and that will calm the process. So when you're first getting into it, I would say go like 1 round, 2 rounds, slowly work your way up to it if you want to. The Wim Hof app is great. I think they have a free trial. If not, he has a YouTube video where he walks you through it, which is like a standard one. And I think the breath hold is not that long. It's like 1.5 minutes, which you can do right away. I'm pretty sure of that. You can do better than you think. But Yeah, the caveat I would say is I don't personally think there's anything dangerous from all the research I've looked into it and from doing it myself, unless you have a pre-existing condition. Then
That
you
makes
should
sense.
maybe talk to a physician first.
Yes. Okay, great disclaimer. And we can drop some of those resources in the show notes to some of those videos. I think that pretty much brings us home on like breath. I don't know if you want to speak to, because I know we want to get to more, but just to like double check and make sure that we have really brought home the main benefit of breathing. How do these breathwork techniques bring you into the present? What they seem beneficial for calming and stuff like that, but is there any more intricate conceptual idea that you can provide to explain? I mean, I'm sure people just start doing it, they're going to be like, oh, I am more present. They'll probably experience that firsthand, but maybe if
The
people are on the fence,
pre-Butts
they
complex.
share more.
It's the pre-Butts complex. I'm not even kidding. That is the
Yeah.
part of your brain that controls your breath. And uh, there's there's definitely an overlap with presence and fight or flight. I think there's like access to presence through fight or flight. This is one of those pathways. The breath work, this is a survival thing. And we are special as humans. We have a special part of our brain which lets us control our breath, which most animals don't have, actually. There's very few animals that have it. There are other mammals that have it. Whales obviously have it. They have to hold their breath and they can go down for hours underwater and they have control over things. But just to give some clarity into it, that is like a survival moment where you have to focus on it because it's so integral to staying alive. If you tap into that pre-Buttsinger complex, you suddenly are tapped into a survival instinct. It's just like as if a predator started chasing you, but at a different level and in a different way. So
Well said.
there's a path. That's what taking a cold shower does too. It literally like spikes your adrenaline. And so this is a similar pathway, but then you have a calming moment after when you're holding your breath and you just like relax into something else. And there's your blood becomes more alkaline and you can actually like have different control of what's going on in your body, which is fascinating. I'm not going to get into it. It's too deep
Yeah,
right now.
no, that's fair. I think just making sure we had that little snippet, I think was beneficial for just like kind of bringing it all the way home for why it really is beneficial and why I think people should try it. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to jump into what I would consider a bit more of a, like these are practices like breath work is something you can do as like a specific, you take time out of your day to do this type of exercise to become more present. Whereas I think there are some other practical tips and advice for just being more present in day-to-day activities and not really being something separate than your actual life.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like leaning into that because you want to be able to be as present as possible throughout all of your day, as opposed to just when you're doing your breathing exercise, right? So one thing I wanted to chat about as just a practical example is the concept of eating with the novelty. And I think you can apply this concept to really any experience, but it's the ability to train your mind to experience every moment as a new moment, to take it in as if the things around you never seen before. For example, if I tasked you with look at a tree and tell me something new that you've never noticed about this tree before, if you're tasked with that, you start to look for things, you start to notice things at a different level. And if you can look at things and experience the world at that level more of the time, then you're going to, you're guarantee you're going to notice things that you kind of just like, when you're operating on your old like mental patterns that you've already built up, you're just going to gloss right over it. But if you start to take that time to look at the details, you're going to start to notice things. And that's where that vividness comes back into play. But specifically with eating, I think because taste is such a powerful sensory experience, and we eat every day, probably around 3 times a day for most people. And so when you are eating, something you can do is let go of your expectations for what it's going to taste like. I'll use chocolate as an example because I do love chocolate, and it's kind of like coffee, like there's a lot of layers to it, right? But everybody has an idea of what chocolate tastes like. We have a name called chocolate. We have some type of definition. We know it comes from the cocoa. And so we have some idea of what it's going to taste like before we ever put, let's say, a chocolate bar or a scoop of chocolate ice cream into our mouth. we have some type of subconscious expectation because we know we like this flavor. And so our subconscious mind is ready for it, and it's ready to taste a certain thing. If you put that into your mouth and it tasted like strawberries or, something like peas or something like that, well, it would be a big shock to you. And you'd be like, whoa, what did I just put in my mouth? Right?
Which will happen if you eat what is it? The red berry cocoa bean, the red
Oh,
cocoa
yeah.
bean. They taste so different in a great way. That first time I tried one out, I was like, what is this? I was
Oh,
expecting
that's amazing. I have not tried that. I need to try that. But
Yeah.
you get the idea, right? And so with that, so the main point here is that how do you go into eating that chocolate bar with no concept of chocolate?
Mhm.
The reason this is important, if you can do it, is to just eat it like with genuine curiosity. What is this going to taste like? And you let go of the concept of chocolate and what you've experienced in the past. You're more likely to have a different tasting experience of that food. It's going to taste probably far more complex because the English language, for sure, really any language, is limited in the way you can describe the way something tastes. And so when you wrap the entire experience into one overarching umbrella concept of chocolate, that's how we describe what this experience is, then it can limit your actual sensory experience. But when you let go of that box, you start to realize that there are components of that experience, layers of that taste that you could never use a word to describe. And so if you can let go of the words when you eat, it's going to taste way, way better. Probably surprise you. You're probably going to consciously notice a particular aspect of the flavor profile that you've never noticed before, even if it's like your favorite chocolate bar. I highly recommend going down this route with all types of food and then taking the same type of concept into every other part of your life. How do you experience the novel? Let go of definitions and concepts to control the experience that you're having. Because it's
I
way
love
more.
it is definitely. I love what you just said about perception, your perspective. I think it's what you're touching on here. The layers, your perspective changes your reality and it changes your experience completely. So beyond just presence, if you're present, but you're the same perspective you've always had, you'll only achieve a certain level of presence, I think, versus if you can approach something from a different perspective on purpose, force yourself to take a different perspective, force yourself to change habit and do something in a different way, then you can enhance and you can explore creatively that presence in a way you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And I think you said that in a very cool way. There's a practicing monk, I forget which country she's from, a monk chef. She chooses to meditate through food. So she will spend weeks preparing these intricately fermented or different types of preparation for food. She'll bring them together with all the other monks there, and they will just taste a unique flavor that has never existed because nobody has taken the time or efficiency or effort to prepare it. And they'll try it all, and they'll just experience what that's like very slowly over like an hour or two. And that's the meditation. And then the food is gone forever and they'll never have it again because it was a very special preparation. I love it.
Conceptually, wow, that is so tasty. I can't even imagine what that's like. And I think that's the point, right? You don't need to walk away from that experience being able to explain it. There's probably not words that can explain it, and that's okay. Let go of the need of that, the need of understanding it consciously, and just experience it. I think, yeah.
And the best part is that can be free for everything. Like you're talking about, all of that exists right in front of you right now. You can do it with the foods you've already had, like you're saying, or you can do it with walking down the street or noticing something, or perhaps putting a texture on your hand. Maybe you go to wash your hands, and instead of just putting the soap on and lather them up right away, why don't you just sit there with it for a second and like look at it and feel it on your skin and think about it. And that could be something that you'll remember. That's one of those memories that can extend your life, which is wild to consider.
Definitely. Okay, let's hop on to the next one. What do you have?
Let's see. I think the next thing, like breathwork and yoga are like a day-to-day everything that I do ritually, but maybe something that I would like to explore further would be passion and curiosity. And this is a little bit abstract and vague, but I like to consider what I'm passionate about in the moment and then dive into it completely and block out like an hour of time to explore it. And then I'll continue on that thread for as long as I need to pull on it. And I've done this with hundreds of hobbies, and I think I enjoyed it a lot and it was worth it. And a lot of people would say that doing a hobby and stopping and doing something else is a waste of time, but I would completely argue the opposite. I think going in to something you're genuinely curious about will bring you to the discovery of the thing that you want to do for longer, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than trying to force something, and of course, if you find something that you want to do in the long term, there's going to be moments when you're like not as excited about it and you push through it. I've played drums for 20 years or so, and I've experienced those ups and downs, and I've stopped playing for, 6-month periods and stuff. But at the end of the day, finding these passions and going for them has been some of the most enjoyable things I've been able to do. And then to share that and talk about it with somebody else after, who maybe is like into it as well or isn't, I don't know, but it just adds a lot of flavor to life, and it adds a lot of presence to life as well. So my most recent one is making AI art, and I've shown you like some of the stuff
I love
that
it
I've been doing because I just really like exploring text into imagery. I'm a very visual person. So recently I was like making images of old Japanese men wearing like half robot helmets with their like other robot companion, and they are like meeting other people in the street in Japan, and it's like photorealistic and beautiful and crazy and wild. And then I made some more concept images for LIFEFORM stuff with like old mad scientists and rooms with just crazy glass vials and metal and plants everywhere, and it's like
You're
just
amazing.
actually zoomed in, and there's so much stuff going on, and I just like trying to bring that to life and see what happens. So whatever it is, playing music, doing that, eating something, walking down the street, laying down is maybe one of my favorite ones, which I don't do all the time. But just laying down and seeing, oh, the ceiling is different, or like this point of view is, I never see this, or like you put your head on the side while you're laying on the ground, and you're like, everything is, well, nobody does this anymore since I was a kid, right? But start doing it as an adult, and I guarantee it will be very refreshing and fun. So those are mine.
See the world from a different angle. I love it. I'll piggyback off of that. Like, I mean, I think where you're getting to more from a practical perspective is like just hobbies, passions, right? These things that you find enjoyment in, because while you can consciously, strengthen your mind to be present doing something that's really boring, like I would like to think it took me a really long time to be genuinely bored, like being in a room with, even if it's just like one object to look at, or it's just myself to like keep myself, occupied. But at a certain point, it's much easier to plug into the present moment when you're doing something that genuinely captivates you, intrigues you, and pulls you in. Like when you're following that curiosity and lighting a fire underneath it. And so thank you for sharing those experiences. I love being, I love receiving a lot of the AI art you're generating. It truly is beautiful, and I'm excited to see where it goes to. For me, I think one is like running. That's probably one of my, I love running. I love writing poetry, anything where you're like actually creating something and bringing something new into the world, I think has a particularly potent ability to draw you into the present moment. So whether, that's painting, sculpting, any type of artistic endeavor, I think can really help you pull you into the present, because you're really having to reflect on a lot of things, whether that be thoughts, but also your sensory awareness. You're pulling from some type of source material and then turning it into something new. So I think that's a really great way to do it. Beyond just like hobbies and so forth, the one other one that's been particularly potent for me in my life is the concept of a last time meditation. And
Those are
I don't know if you do those?
Yeah, but not very often, because they often make me sad or feel more pessimistic than my normal positive, optimistic outlook. So I don't do them as often, I think, because I'm unsure if I enjoy them, but they are useful. Go on about it.
Yes. Last time meditations have changed my life.
Wow.
So really I do them not daily, but almost daily. And it just depends on how disconnected I'm feeling lately, because I can know it really quickly. And have I been present the past, few hours? If I haven't,
It's
I'm really
amazing
going
how
to
you,
start to plug into it.
yeah,
Oh
you can
yeah,
know that,
that's a whole
right?
other side point. Like the more you do this, the more you're conscious of it, the more you start to really reflect at a habitual rate, and you can bring yourself back in much more often. But one tool to do that, even if it's the most mundane thing, the last time meditation is just to genuinely experience whatever you're doing as if you were doing it for the last time. You are going to do everything for the last time. There's probably songs that you've heard for the last time, shows you've watched for the last time, people you've talked to for the last time, games you've played, whatever it might be. You've done a lot of things for the last time already, and you don't even know it, right? Because maybe you assume that you're going to be able to do it again one day, and hopefully you do get to. But the point still stands that at a certain rate, you're going to do everything for the last time, and the thing you're doing right now could very well be the last time you do that thing. Genuinely, it could be. You could die tomorrow. You could die, hopefully not, right? But you could.
I guess one of the we're writing
Right.
rating
Yeah,
now.
that's why did it get correct when he does this. But like, but at a certain point, it helps you when you really genuinely approach the experience and convince yourself that this is the last time that I'm doing this thing. Then you grab onto that moment in a way that you've probably never grabbed onto a moment before. Even if it's the most mundane thing, you're trying to pull in every ounce of detail you can, squeeze everything you can out of it. It's just like a response that your body has. It almost triggers fight or flight, possibly, but in like a certain way, if you're not careful. But it just makes you appreciate everything that is around you, even in the most boring of circumstances, whether it's your room that you've been in, for years. If you think about that, like, this is the last time I'm going to be in this room, and everything just starts flooding back in. You start to observe everything with fresh eyes. And I don't know, it's just a very potent experience. I mean,
Just try not
go
to
ahead.
get too nostalgic, because I think that can be a negative
Yeah.
point if you
Yeah.
look at it in the wrong way. I think it is a fine line. I would say though, definitely apply this to relationships and with people. Like apply this to your interactions with people. If nothing else, even if you never do the meditation, just think about that this could be the last time you see a particular person, and then like appreciate that moment together and make it more fun for both of you. Make it more exciting.
Yes.
Like exercise your emotional hygiene by being happier and present.
Mhm.
um,
Absolutely.
yes. And I had one more quick thought to say about the everyday presence, which Sam talks about, Sam Harris talks about in the Waking Up app here and there, but it is that you can gain control over your emotions, not in when they pop up, but you can gain control over how long they last and what you want to affect you and how deeply you want to affect you. And that is a level of presence, which is just being aware of your emotion and then deciding if it's useful or not any longer. And that unlocked something in me that I didn't expect. And now every time, like I used to get triggered like every once in a while, like a normal person going on autopilot from here and there.
Yeah, of
And
course.
after I started being aware of my emotions, like I would go months and then probably even like years without getting triggered, to the point where if I feel a trigger or if I know that a trigger would be coming there, like I've just trained myself to realize that it's coming, and then to immediately I can just check it and think, is this
Mhm.
useful? Like, why is it useful? Pretty much getting triggered is never useful unless you need to like save somebody's life or do something very specific, right?
Yep.
But as a reaction, it's not going to be useful. And what's further, like there's other emotions too, and it's really, if you want to feel the depths of like sorrow because you're mourning, maybe that's something that you would want to lean into, right? But if it's like sometimes I get too excited about things and then I can't sleep, and it can be useful there too. Like most of the time it's useful to keep any type of anger or triggering completely like just non-existent when you don't need it, right? But beyond that, I think it can be useful in many contexts. And the more
Yes.
in control you are of that, the more present and the more control you are of your own body. It's a superpower, as Sam says, and I would have to agree because
Yeah.
your emotions can control you if you don't control them. It's one way or the other.
I completely relate to that. Thank you for bringing that up. I have had a similar experience because a lot of the experience I went through was like having panic attacks and all these things. And that's me, my biological system producing hormones, right, going into my body. And some of that was controllable. Some of it wasn't because of just like medical issues. But I think, largely speaking, like being able to take that mindful control and understand that there's this isn't serving me right now. How do I move forward? How do I let go of this and let go and let be? I think you have to like accept it to a certain point. But broadly speaking, it's interesting how in today's age, because really what we're up against is like the biological response of stressors, and the things that are in modern life are just so far removed from what we were biologically, programmed to respond to and what we evolved for. And so I think there's just a lot of stress that a lot of people carry all of the time, whether it's stress or anger or any other emotion. I think it can be quite overwhelming now when we live in a world of sensory overload, alerts, notifications, social media, all of these things. So I think it now more than ever in human history, it's important to really hone in on the emotions you feel and realize that are you controlling them, or are they controlling you, and how often? So yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think
Anyway,
that's a great.
Go ahead.
Maybe a great stopping point, or do you have anything else?
I agree. No, I think I was about to say the same thing. I think we've really flushed this out. Maybe we have a future conversation about presence another day, or topics that are somewhat related. But I think this is a pretty valuable episode with a lot of practical tips and examples. Are you
Definitely
there? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, your video
alive.
cut out for me.
I am alive. I'm here. I'm present.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad. I'm glad you're present. Me too. So I guess let's just go ahead and wrap it up.
Ritual. Let's do our
Yes.
ritual.
Yeah. What do you have for us?
No, what do you have for us? Let's start with you. We need to
Okay, perfect. Just a few
Leave us-
words. By the way, our ritual will just leave you with something. I want to leave you with life ends, so enjoy it. Let yourself free.
Cool. I don't necessarily agree that life will necessarily end, but we'll see what happens. It probably will, but it might not. So I'm going to leave you with...
That's my meditation. That's everything about it. Is things end.
Like I told you, I don't like that meditation as much.
I know you don't.
No, it's very useful. I don't take anything for granted. I do think that there's potential that
Yep.
it's good to do the last time or anything, but I'm agnostic to where life will go from here, and I think nothing is certain.
Totally fair.
Which is great, which is what I love about it. So the thing that would maybe leave you with is that nothing is certain. So explore your curiosity and your passion. What I mean by that, I'm going to take it a little bit further, is that you should never not do something because of the way things are right now. It doesn't matter how things are right now. It matters in what you want to do. So do the thing you want to do, but don't worry about how things are right now, because nothing is certain anyway, and things could shift tomorrow and you could have missed the opportunity. So if you feel strongly about doing something, just do it.
100%. And I've said it better. Thank you so much, Jordan.
2 thumbs up. Yes, fireworks. Let's go.